Hello everyone and welcome to the book station. My name is Sanjana and this video is all about the books that I read in the month of June. Well, in the month of June I managed to read 5 books altogether and I'm so excited to talk about all of them. So let's get started. The first book that I read, I do not have the copy of it because I borrowed it from my friend, is The Palace of Illusions by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. Well, the first book I read by the same American Indian author is Sister of My Heart. I read it a few months ago and I just fell in love with the book, and she has become one of my favorite authors now, and that persuaded me to read The Palace of Illusions. Well, The Palace of Illusions is based on the characters from the epic Mahabharata. So the protagonist of The Palace of Illusions is Draupadi from the same epic, and it starts with the birth of Draupadi from the fire and her death on the Himalayan hills. Well, this is a revisionist reading of Mahabharata. For those who have already read Mahabharata, you will know, even if you have read the abridged version, that in the Mahabharata we get to know only about the major events and the major characters, and all you get to know is either the character is black or white. But in The Palace of Illusions, your opinions will change, I bet it, because you get to look at the characters from very different perspectives. Though the book is said to be all about Draupadi, I wouldn't put it that way, because though it's about Draupadi, you get to know about other characters like Karna, Krishna, the Pandavas, the Kauravas, and Kunti as well, and everything related to Draupadi. And at the end of the book, you realize that none of the characters is completely black or white. Every character is a shade of grey, and though they have divine powers, they are flawed at the end, and these small events which involve all the characters and which involve their flaws build up to bring about the epic Mahabharata. And those who know about the epic, Draupadi is considered the reason why the great Mahabharata war, which killed millions, was fought. But the truth is, Draupadi was not the only reason. Yes, she was a part of it, but the seed of the war was sown even before the birth of Draupadi. So in this book, you get to know more about Draupadi, her instincts, her dilemmas, her opinions about everything that is forced upon her that she wants to do, and also a lot about the characters is explored. So I think if you love epics and if you want to look at them from a different perspective, go ahead and pick up this book. And the author employs magic realism or magical realism in her writing. Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni is known for this employment of magical realism, and she is at her best in this book. So go ahead and read this book. I think it's one of the best books about epics ever written. So after reading that, I read I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing by Maya Angelou. Well, the real name of Maya Angelou is Marguerite. You get to know that from the book. So this book is the first book in her 7-volume autobiography written by herself. Obviously autobiography, come on. So this first book is a coming of age story which starts when Maya Angelou is around 3 years old and ends when she is 16 years old and she gives birth to a baby. Well, I love this book because it has so many elements that build the character and make her so strong. So the plot goes like this. At a very young age, that is when she is 3 and her brother Bailey is 2 years old, Maya and her brother are sent away by their parents to live with their grandma in a southern United States city which is threatened by the Ku Klux Klan. Well, the Ku Klux Klan was formed in the southern part of America to put down or to actually torture the African community. And so these two young kids grow up in the atmosphere threatened by the Ku Klux Klan. They hear about so many events which are gory. Bailey actually sees a person who is killed by the Ku Klux Klan, and that description is very, very traumatizing. And at the age of 10, Maya and her brother are again sent to live with their mother, where Maya is sexually abused by her mother's lover. So this actually pushes her into a well, and it's so traumatic. When I read this description, I just stopped reading the book and cried, because how can someone do that to a child? But that does not stop her from living. Yet, though she goes into her own shell, she continues to live because she has no other choice. And then she's sent back to her grandma again, along with her brother, where she finds refuge in books. She starts reading a lot of books that contribute towards the growth of Maya Angelou. Though she's very close to her brother abandons her. He goes into another world altogether, which I do not want to reveal. But it is a wonderful book where such a young, strong girl is going through crisis of identity, crisis of her own sexuality. And at the age of 16, when she doubts herself to be a lesbian, she goes on a small adventure to find out what she actually is, and ends up conceiving. And at the end of her school, and around 16 years old, she gives birth to a baby. Why I love this book is because all through the book you see that the characters are always in a dilemma. She doesn't know where she belongs, because neither do her parents accept her completely. She can't connect with her elder grandmother, who's so religious and strict. But at the end of the book, when she gives birth to a baby, Maya Angelou expresses that for the first time in her life, she felt that something belonged to herself. And that description is so well written that it actually makes you cry. And it's one of the most memorable endings of a storybook. So if you like this, if you liked something related to the African community or of a coming of age story, go ahead and read this book. And the third book I read was The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. Well, this was one hell of a book. To be honest, when I started reading this book, I did not want to read it because I did not understand what is happening, and I thought I have to give up this book. But my friend had told me it is one of the best books she has read, and I pushed myself to read this book, and I'm glad I did this because this is one of the best books by an Indian author, like in Indian literature, that I've ever read. This book was awarded the Booker Prize in 1997, if I'm not wrong about the year, and I think it's totally worth it. It's a debut novel and it's so well written. The style of the author is very unique. I've seen many reviews about this book and many people say she's just beating around the bush. But I believe that the author has taken a major incident and analyzed the lives of people related to that incident. Many a time we see what is mentioned in the book, reports of it in newspapers, but we don't know what happens to people after that, people who were related to those events. But in this book she explores it. So the story is about two unidentical twins, Rahel and a pair of unidentical twins, Rahel and Esthapan, and how one small event in their life turns their life upside down, leaves Esthapan and Rahel separated, who otherwise are never apart from each other. They are two clever kids who are two bodies but one soul, but just one event turns their life upside down and leaves a very clever child like Esthapan very dumb. He stops speaking to anyone and he recedes into his own shell, away from society and away from his beloved sister Rahel itself. And if you have ever in your life felt, why is the society this way, then I think you should go ahead and read this book. I do not say it gives validation to the acts of people, but you do get to understand what builds a society and how a society, functions and how flawed it is. I do not blame anyone out there who's watching this video because it's us who builds this society, and at the end of the day we need to alter the way we think and who we love and why we love them. And I think this book is so well written that I think it's a must read for anyone. Even if you don't love reading books, go ahead and read this one book. Okay, the fourth book I read immediately after The God of Small Things was Eastern Kayer's A Terrible Matriarchy. I've got the copy of this book. This was in our syllabus, but I read it after the examinations. Eastern Kayer is a writer from the Nagaland, and I wouldn't say it belongs to Indian literature as in English. I think it is a literature of Nagaland, because it reflects the culture of Naga community, about their beliefs, about their ethics, and it's so well written. And let me read out what's written here. Young Delino is 5 years old when she is sent off to live with her disciplinary grandmother, who wants her to grow up to be a good Naga wife and mother. According to grandmother, girls don't need an education, they don't need love and affection or time to play, or even a good piece of meat with their gravy. Naturally, Delino hates her with a vengeance. This is the evocative tale of a young girl growing up in a traditional society in India's northeast, which is in the midst of tremendous change. So, like it said, Delino is sent to live with her grandmother, for whom she develops a kind of hatred because of the discrimination that her grandmother practices. She favors her grandsons more than Delino because they are boys. And this too is a coming of age story which starts when Delino is 5 years old and ends when Delino is 23 years old. And you see the smooth transition of Delino from a very young girl with so many doubts to a very strong woman. And the transition is so smooth that you realize it only after you finish reading. So Delino, who is very bright kid, who is enthusiastic about learning, wants to go ahead and go to college and learn a lot of things. But her grandmother disapproves of this, and it follows the life of Delino away from her beloved mother, father, brothers, growing up with her grandmother, and how difficult it is for a young girl to grow up away from everything she loves. So when I read this book, in the end, Delino obviously gets married, and I was not really happy because all through her life she constantly fights to get educated, to go to college, and I expected her to go on and become a big figure, like achieve something, go ahead and become an officer and make her parents proud. But then when I gave it some thought, I realized that everyone's battles are different. For one person, going to college might be a usual thing, it might be a big deal. But someone like Delino from a small town, going to college itself is a challenge. She goes through a lot of difficulties to go ahead and get a college education, which is a challenge for her and a great achievement. So not everyone's life has to end up with getting a gold medal, because everyone has their own choices, and Delino, I'm sure, the kind of girl she is, made the choice at the right time of getting married. And why I love this book is because when I read any book, I take a part of it with me. And what I take from this book is the character of Delino. You do not see her become aggressive or aggressively go against her parents or her grandmother, but she is a wise kid who analyzes, who supports everyone around her, including her own grandmother, yet achieves what she wants, that is to get an education. So if you are from a small town or you have faced the struggles of a small town, then go ahead and pick this book, because not only does this deal with the girl, but also the problems related to the community, of nationality, of trying to make ends meet, and trying to stay together as a family and support each other. Okay, the last book that I read in the month of June and continued to read in the first week of July is The Namesake by Jhumpal Hari. This book has been made into a movie as well. I don't know why it's not getting focused. Yeah, there it is. So if you do not want to read this book, go ahead and watch the movie because it is a very good book. So this story follows the life of Ashima, Ashok and Gogol Ganguly. So Ashima and Ashok, as their name suggests, Gangulis are Bengalis, and they moved to America, where Ashok has been studying and working. And what happens after that is they have a son and they name him Gogol. Gogol is only a pet name, but because they do not receive a letter from their grandmother, it becomes his good name, as Bengalis call it, and he is referred to and called as Gogol Ganguly. But when Gogol grows up, he does not like his name and he hates it, and he does not understand why his parents gave him an unusual name, and he goes on to change his name to Nikhil Ganguly. Though this seems a very simple plot about a young boy trying to change his name, the whole idea is about two different cultures. How Nikhil, who has to follow, ethics and cultural roots of Bengal, that is Indian, wants by heart to be an American. So his change of name from Gogol to Nikhil, and which is shortened to Nick by his friends, is not only the change of name, but his desire to become something which he is not. His desire to become an American completely, while his parents believe that he has to be rooted in his culture. So there is a lot of dilemma, and the events that happen in the book, which are very surprising, I do not want to reveal what happens, pushes Gogol to do things which are so unexpected. He goes about to go on to live with a girl who is American, which his mother does not approve of. She is a person who has moved from Calcutta to America, that is New York, but has not left her roots. She still cooks, wears and lives like a Bengali, and she is a Bengali at heart, while her son goes on to become an American. Not completely, but there is a lot of dilemma. So if you have ever been interested in diasporic writing, you should go ahead and watch the movie or read the book. So those were the 5 books that I read in the month of June. I'm sorry if this video was a bit longer than the previous one, but I really wanted to speak how I felt about these books, because there have been such wonderful books. So if you have read any of these books, go ahead and comment them down below how you felt about these books, and if you want me to read any more books, comment them down below, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, read a book. Bye bye.